Hello and welcome to Curious E. Today we are going to do a geography chapter, Resources and Development for Class 10s. Everything available in our environment which can be used to satisfy our needs, provided they are technologically accessible, economically feasible, and culturally acceptable, can be termed as resource. So let's get into the chapter and know a little bit more about it.
There are different types of resources, and they are categorized on the basis of origin, exhaustibility, ownership, and development. So let's take the first part, that is origin. What do we have under origin? Biotic and abiotic. So what is biotic? Something that has life. Example, humans, flora, fauna, fisheries. Abiotic, I'm sure you may have guessed it. Yes, non-living things. You have rocks and metals. So I'll repeat that again. Origin, you have biotic and abiotic. Biotic, something that has life. Example, humans, flora, fauna, fisheries. Abiotic, something that doesn't have life. Example, rocks and metals. Let's move on to the next one, exhaustibility. Imagine you're playing a game and you really prayed to the best of your ability and you come home exhausted. Your energy is drained out. In the same way, exhaustibility when it comes to resources is something very similar. But this time we have two types of it, renewable and non-renewable. So what are renewable resources? Something that can be renewed and reproduced, and we can use it again and again. Now this we can do in different forms like physical, chemical, or mechanical form. Example, solar energy, wind energy, forest resources, water resources, etc. What are non-renewable? First and foremost, it takes millions of years for these resources to be formed, and they can be exhausted due to overuse. Example, coal and fossil fuels. Now let's take the next one. Ownership. We have individual, community, national and international. So what comes under individual? Basically resources which you privately own. Example, land, car, books, phone. Community, resources which can be accessed by your community. Example, you can have temples, churches, mosques, etc. At the same time, you have public parks. When it comes to nation, it has political boundaries. A particular nation can own certain resources. When it comes to ocean, up to 12 nautical miles from the coast therein belongs to the nation. And you have also other national resources such as trains, have lakes, roads, etc. We go on to the international one. When it comes to international, there is no one country can say that these are my resources. Certain resources belongs to everyone. Example, you have moon, sun, etc. And also ocean beyond 200 kilometers from your coastal area. Let's move on to development. We have potential, developed resources, stock resources, and reserve resources. I'll try to help you out as to how to remember these points. I've used the first alphabet of each word, P, D, S, and R. So you can make a story of your own. This is called as mnemonic technique. I'll make a story of my own. PDSR. Let's say Peter was dancing on the street. Suddenly, it started raining. So if I have to remember what points come under development, I will remember PDSR. That's all. Okay. So let's take the first one. Potential. You have resources which are not utilized. Why? Because they are very, very expensive. Now, example, Rajasthan and Gujarat has a lot of potential for solar and wind energy. Yes, we have tried our best to use it as much as possible. At the same time, we could not completely harness it because it is very, very expensive. Secondly, we have developed resources. Now, these resources are surveyed and we know the quality and quantity of these resources. Example, wood and coal. Stock resources. Now, these resources have a potential to satisfy the human needs, but we do not have appropriate technology. Let me give an example. Water is a compound of two inflammable gases, hydrogen and oxygen, which can be used as a rich source of energy. But we do not have an appropriate technology to use them for this purpose. Hence, it can be considered as stock resources. Moving on to reserve. I'm sure your parents may have kept some food reserved in your house. Likewise, reserve resources are meant for future and we utilize it in a very limited extent. Example, water from the dams, forest. With so many resources, we are bound to have problems. So what are the problems? Our resources are getting depleted. So we can see depletion in our resources all around, which is affecting our ecological balance. So our environment is getting greatly affected. Another big problem is because these resources are not well distributed and these are in the hands of only few people. This is one of the reasons we have haves and the have-nots in our society, rich and the poor. So students, it will be very interesting if you can bring out ways in which we can make resources accessible to everyone in the society. Because of all of these resources and problems, it is very important for us to live sustainably. And that is where we come to sustainable development. What is sustainable development? Sustainable economic development means development should take place without damaging our current environment, keeping in mind the needs of the future generation. So, how are we going to do that? We are going to identify the resources, we are going to plan the resources, and we are going to match it with something which I am going to talk about. Identification. So first and foremost, we need to survey, do the mapping and measure it. So we need to know how much resources do we have, where is it, and what is the quality and quantity of it. Then moving on to the next step, we need to plan. And for this planning, what is important? Technology. How are we going to use technology to extract these resources, or how are we going to use technology to make these resources or particular resource available to the masses? And then the next step is the implementation, making use of these resources. And finally, our nation has plans. So all of these have to match with the national development plans. So I would like to end with a quote from Mahatma Gandhi. There is enough for everybody's need and not for anybody's greed. So we'll see you next time. Have a nice day.